Consistent with research conducted for the Advancement Project, UNCF, and the California Endowment, Me Productions has found that too many students of color are facing harsh disciplinary actions at school. Even though Me's research indicates that urban youth value education, the academic pathway becomes one of derailment due to suspensions, arrests, expulsions, and other punitive disciplinary actions. Youth who experience discipline often become less engaged in the education process. They become pigeonholed and labeled by school staff, many times leading to acting out or checking out. When asked whether they have experienced disciplinary action at any point in school, nearly half of urban youth said they had been in detention. Disturbingly, 82% of black males have been disciplined at some point in their school careers. That is 4 out of 5. In fact, black males are expelled from public schools 2 times more than any other group. What you are about to hear and see are the voices and real classroom stories from public school teachers from Houston, Miami, Philadelphia, and Jackson, Mississippi. They share some of the challenges public school teachers face on a day-to-day basis and talk about how zero-tolerance policies are not working for them or their students. Zero-tolerance policies, paving the Schoolhouse to Jailhouse highway.
Zero tolerance policy is applied blindly.
A kid in first, second, third grade brought something to school, and it was just a show, and they expelled them. And that's why across the board just doesn't work.
A student come to our school, she got expelled from her school for having a plastic knife in her book bag to pop the heels out of her Heelys when the kids were wearing those sneakers to Heelys. And to expel her for that, I thought was pretty extreme.
I think that has to be really reserved for the most heinous of offenses, if you will. I mean, for fighting, hitting and drugs. You know, I think really that's it. You don't, I don't know, throw your heaviest artillery at a problem that in the scheme of things is not, you know, a major issue.
Zero tolerance is situational.
Yeah.
And I think it depends on who's giving out the lack of tolerance for certain behaviors.
Zero policy, there's 2 reasons why it's not working. One, it's being misused. I think these examples are just small examples, but I definitely think it's being misused. The second thing, it doesn't really address the problem. I mean, it really doesn't address why the kid is doing what he's doing. It's just removing him from the environment. That's all.
No.
It should take into consideration other factors like culture, social, economic situations. It should take into account a lot of things that factor in.
What we deem as zero tolerance being effective, it may not be as effective if we don't find different ways to intervene. Zero tolerance sometimes works, but most times it doesn't if we don't find the root.
Some of it just doesn't make sense sometimes. They say zero tolerance, but it's not followed. And there are other times it's just taken to the max, to something that just doesn't make any sense. I think it needs, maybe it just needs not say zero tolerance. Maybe that's just too black and white.
In my opinion, education is the best investment you could make. So keeping those kids in the classroom and getting them to, you know, advance in their education is the key to keeping them out of trouble.
It seems like there's no value of education with the parents nowadays. Now, understand the fact that parents are younger, so that could be a part of it as well. But the parents don't care, the child doesn't. You know.
I think the main problem is a lot of these parents are young and they really don't know how to raise children. The parents are getting younger, the grandparents are getting younger, and I think that's one of the main issues.
A lot of these students lack respect. They lack having a stable home environment. They lack being kids. Too many of them are too grown as far as different things that they're allowed to do, and the parents don't give them any accountability for it.
I just think the parents are the biggest part of this whole puzzle. And they're the ones that's being left out of the puzzle. Because it is about accountability. And a lot of administrators don't want to deal with the parents the way they really should. And it falls back to teachers, or the teachers in the classroom. And that brings down the whole morality issue of the whole school. Even the students feel it when the teachers are under the gun.
It kind of turns you away from the profession. I mean, you don't even want to teach because the kids aren't disciplined. So, I mean, you lose good teachers because of the students.
Absolutely. I thought twice about my profession this past year based on the students.
Students are allowed to get away with things, and it goes from one extreme to another, and it just builds and builds and builds.
And it just takes a lot of energy when you have to deal with the same things over and over, and there's no consistent consequences or assistant with administration to help.
For example, when a student pushed me, I felt like that child needed to be gone. You know, but you had so many inconsistencies, but that same kid 3 months later brought a gun to school.
I think one of our problems is the difference between what happens in the classroom and then when the situation is turned over to the administrators let it go. Or a parent comes in the next day and the punishment is ignored and the student's back in the classroom, and it just kind of demeans whatever the teacher is trying to get across.
If that administrator is weak, the whole school is weak.
That's true.
Because there are going to be some teachers who are going to be lax, laid back, and could care less. Because that administrator could care less.
That's true.
You know, a weak administrator is the worst thing you can have in the school.
There are a lot of gang affiliations at my school, and it was actually a pretty dangerous place to be. There were fights, like upwards of like 10 fights a week.
We've had several instances on our campus where teachers have been, I don't want to say assaulted because I think that gives like a certain connotation, but like struck. And I don't think that's like appropriate, or being groped.
Kids bring.
I
had a kid with a gun in my classroom.
Oh, yeah.
He was sitting in my classroom with a gun.
Teachers are burnt out, and just listening to these teachers, they feel unsupported, and to say, oh, I wrote a pink slip, and I know if I get a kid's file and they have 80 pink slips from one school year, what was the purpose? You just wasted paper. So if you don't feel supported in your efforts, then it's going to make you, have that laissez-faire attitude, like, for what? I'm not going to be heard.
I agree with that. The teachers I see who are turning their backs are the ones who are burnt out, who have attempted to, they've lost that, from saying not even want to come to school, and they don't feel as though they're being backed by the principal, backed by other teachers, because just what you said, they'll turn your back. If a child's acting out, can he sit in your room, take a break? We don't support each other, and the principal doesn't always support. So I see those teachers that I would hope at one time were really good teachers, but now are burnt out, they're tired, they're just trying to get through the year, and the kids know they're just trying to get through the year.
I think student behavior affects us personally because we end up saying and doing things that we really don't want to do. On a personal level, the behavior could get to the point, if you're not good with, classroom management, to the point where you may lose who you are.
When you are good with classroom management, you still
have that one.
still have that, and just like you said, you say or you may even do something that you turn around and you think, nah, good Lord,
did I do that?
I mean, really? Or you even feel bad.
Because anytime it gets to a point where a teacher doesn't feel like coming to school and you want to turn on the light with these kids, it's a problem. It's a problem because of the way that they disrespect you, the way that you have to prepare your class because of that disrespect, turns the whole curriculum around. I don't care what the school board is putting down, you have to put your thing down before you walk through that door.
The high stakes test, and also tying my merit and my worth as a teacher to how my kid does on a test, not whether they're a decent human being or not.
Right.
Not whether they're a productive, member of their community at school. You could be a real jerk, but hey, you got a 5 on the FCAT, good for you. So I think that has a really strong impact.
The pressure that they're putting on teachers to get test scores up, but you have all of these other situations to deal with. It's impossible.
Because we know the problems that are going on in our schools, And discipline is a problem. And someone needs to help us, the teachers, because we have to deal with a lot.
People who make these policies are not in the classroom. We can all sit up here and say, well, if Johnny does this, but you're not in the classroom, or you've been in the classroom 30 years ago.
Teachers are in it every day. And if we can help the administration see what we see, it can be better effective.
Let us have a voice. We're on the front lines on a daily basis. Let us have a voice in what the policies are.
If we feel like we're disposable and that what we feel or what we think about the profession that we've chosen doesn't matter and we can get someone else to replace you, then no one can truly buy into anything. Knowing you have a voice.
Knowing that you have a voice?
Yes, that's heard.
And something is done.
Yes. Right.
There are some changes that are being made.
Right.
If they want us to buy into something, we need to be involved in creating that policy, or at least need to be represented.
First, you're going to have to get input from your community. You're going to have to look at your school board members. You're going to have to work with your superintendent. It's going to have to roll down to the administrators. You're going to have to look at the teachers, the parents, and even listen to students. You're going to have to form a committee of all of these stakeholders to say this is what it's going to be.
I think if we involve them, colleges do this all the time. They have student disciplinary boards.
I believe if someone comes up with a conference on discipline in Jackson Public Schools and asks for our superintendent, principals, teachers, or whatever, just have a panel with the parents and we bring up and have someone who specializes in discipline and can tell them what discipline is all about, what should and should not be.
Why can't we involve students in their own disciplinary procedures? I mean, why can't we involve them in counseling, peer groups? I mean, I think all these things need to go on at schools if we're going to really address this problem. Because us against them ain't working. And this zero policy is us against them.
Where teachers are going to have to come together and say, we are not going to deal with it anymore. We're going to do it for the sake of the children. We're going to have to come together and work together and band together, because this is not a war that we can fight individually. We got to pull together and fight this war if we want to save our children.
I think the kids need mental health services. I think that there's suffering. I mean, if you look in their eyes, you can see that they're in pain.
I think rather than sending them to a place where they might be unsupervised for extended periods of time or not doing anything, it would be better to send them to what I've already said it, like a counseling type of situation, getting to the root of the problem, giving them clearly recognizing that there is an issue and addressing it rather than just saying, get out of here.
Our students that we've had that have the drug problems that we discover, that have the violent action problems, if they, or other issues that they don't get the counseling for after their suspension or whatever, if they don't get that, then eventually those problems can continue to persist and then get worse to the point to where we won't have a choice but to arrest the child.
The counselors are used for curriculum scheduling purposes.
Part of the problem is our counselors don't do counseling anymore at the school.
No.
Anybody outside is completely unfamiliar. Right, you should be a scheduler, not a counselor. And I can tell you a lot of those counselors that I've talked to, they're upset by it too, because they said, hey,
That's not what they got into.
I got into this because I want to counsel kids. I want to help them deal with their personal issues.
Give me the tools, to help the children learn, because they can't learn if they're unsafe.
Improving teachers' classroom management strategies, because I've just seen firsthand how that makes all the difference in the world. When I student taught, the teacher I was under just had 1 million, and it just made everything run smoothly, where it didn't get to anything, higher levels of discipline, because she was able to just work with the kid.
With the teacher, if it starts there and they can, have good classroom management and provide a good example and have a positive learning environment, you don't have as much of the discipline problems.
A lot of behavior problems would go away if teachers took control of their classroom and they governed their classroom like it was theirs, instead of, to me, when you start sending children to administration, you like giving all your control away. Now I know it's instances where that has to happen, but for minor things, I think you should exact discipline in the classroom. It should be fair, and we should keep it moving.
Zero tolerance is a non-caring policy. It does not care about the situation, the circumstances, or the child.
It could be that the schools are inflexible, uncaring, and forgiving. As parents, we don't kick our kids out of the school every time, out of the house, every time they mess up, which is true. We try to find out the root of the problem and get them some help when they need it. Schools should help kids learn from their mistakes and give them better strategies to deal with conflicts, not give them punishments that create even more problems like failing school or getting in trouble on the streets while they are suspended.